All right, I've put it off as long as I can. It's time to talk about the national championship game, LSU versus Clemson, and give my official preview and prediction against the spread for this game. Now, I have spent a lot of time, particularly on the live shows, talking about the game the last couple of weeks or so leading up to this game since the semifinals have been played. But I've yet to really say who I actually think is going to win the game or who I think might cover the spread. I'm going to do that in today's video. Before we get started, just a couple of things. Congratulations to LSU and Clemson. You guys are the last two standing this year in the 2019 college football season. And let's be real, every single person on this channel, every single person watching this video right now wishes their team was playing in this game. Win or lose, both these teams have had an amazing season. So congratulations to the team and the fans. Number two, I have seen your comments. I have heard your pleas and your cries. You're tired of the same old, every video sitting in the same place. I used to stand up. People complained about that. I wish this guy would be still. He's moving back and forth. So I start sitting down. I get complaints, change it up a little. I did a few in the backyard or whatever, but it's wintertime. Not always convenient to do it on the porch out back there. So I'm stuck out here again today. But here's what I've decided to do for you. This is a huge game, national championship game, 2019 college football season. I'm going to give you what you want. How about a road trip? How about Uncle Lou on location? Let's go. I can't work here. It smells like teen pregnancy and the world's longest string of bad luck ever. I'm out of here. Oh my God. No, I'm sorry. I can't work here either. If the letter L was a room, this is what it would look like. Jesus Christ. This is the direct result of court-ordered anger management classes. Affirmative action has outlived its usefulness at this point, hasn't it? Oh my God. Okay. All right. I tried. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not very impressed with what I've seen. It looks like I might just have to stay here and do these videos. Comment down below, though, if there are other places you'd like to see Uncle Lou go to try to film a video, and I'll do what I can for you. But for this one, we're going to have to just do it right here in Grandma's basement or Mom's garage or whatever it is you guys are calling it this week. Let's go. Hey, good morning, and it's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today, so thanks for watching. I really appreciate it also. And two, in addition to that as well, hey, subscribe to this channel if there's a reason that you're not already. Yes, I'm a Georgia fan. I don't try to hide that, but I'm a college football fan. Georgia just happens to be my favorite team. I post college football videos every single day of the year round, and I don't just talk about my Georgia Bulldogs. I talk about all kinds of teams, all kinds of topics over the course of the entire year. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, make sure you don't miss any uploads. I do live streams like at least 5 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 a.m. I have a morning show co-hosted with BBD, a Tennessee fan. You guys check that out here on the channel, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 a.m. if you haven't already. And then Tuesday and Thursday night at 10 p.m., I do a call-in show. I take calls from college football fans from all over. We have a great time hanging out, talking about college football. Last year during the offseason, I'm going to be completely honest with you, and this isn't just my opinion. I heard this from a lot of people on the channel in the comment section too. Hanging out here and doing these live shows, particularly the live shows during the offseason, the call-in shows, getting together a couple of times a week and talking college football during the offseason really made the offseason go by a lot quicker last year. Spend your offseason here on LouTube with us, hang out with a bunch of diehard college football fans, and we'll talk football year round. All right, here we go. Monday night. Today is Saturday morning as I'm recording this video, but the game is Monday night, 8 p.m. in New Orleans at the Mercedes-Benz Dome out there, home of the New Orleans Saints. LSU versus Clemson. The game comes on ESPN at 8 o'clock. And currently, as of filming of this video, LSU is a 5.5-point favorite. I'm going to talk about some key points to this game, maybe what each team needs to try to do to win, what each team needs to try to do maybe to keep from losing, and what can each team try to take away from the other to ensure their best chance at a win in this game. And then at the end, I'll give you my actual prediction against the spread here and tell you who I think is going to win this game. Let's go. All right, as usual, the numbers that I'm using here, the odds, the over-under, the spread, the money lines, all those kinds of things come straight from the site over at betnow.eu. I know a lot of you guys have already signed up over there during the course of the season, but this is the second year in a row I've been lucky enough to work with the good people over there at betnow.eu. There's a link in the description of this video. If you click that link, it'll take you over there. You can get yourself signed up on an account, make some money betting on this national title game. They have a lot of prop bets and things like that, just like they always do with the Super Bowl and any big-time game. So you can bet who you think will win outright, who you think will win against the spread, total points scored, most yards, pretty much you name it. You can find it over there at betnow.eu. Make sure you use the promo code Uncle Lou when you get signed up. That's one word, Uncle Lou, and they're going to give you a bonus on whatever you deposit. Good luck. All right, the first thing that jumps out about me, really, when I start to talk about this game, honestly, is what appears to me to be the lack of respect that a lot of people are giving Clemson. I see a lot of people that expect LSU not only to win this game, but to run away with it. Is that a possibility? Of course, anything's a possibility when two teams line up to play. We see crazy stuff happen all the time. Most people thought last year's national title game was going to be a good, close game. And of course, that ended up not being the case with Clemson running away with it, 44-16 or whatever the final score ended up being there. It's hard for me to actually say with a straight face that either team here is going to win in a blowout. Now, I'm guilty of being one of the people last year that said the same thing. And then, of course, Clemson came out and ran Bama out of the building. So again, anything can happen. But I think it's really hard to predict that in this game. And it's kind of surprising to me that if people are picking a blowout, they're picking it on the LSU side. Not that I don't think LSU is a great team. Clearly, LSU is a great team, or they wouldn't be in the position that they're in. They're undefeated, probably the best offense LSU has ever had. With Joe Burrow, they bring in Joe Brady on the offensive side to mix things up, and it's just been lightning in a bottle this year. I mean, literally everything LSU has done offensively has worked for the entire year. Joe Burrow, amazing season. 2 or 3 NFL wide receivers. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a great running back, probably one of the best 6'7" running backs in America. Just everything they've done has seemed to work. Joe Burrow has made all the throws, all the reads. He can scramble. He can escape pressure. He can extend plays. He can run for first downs when he needs to. I mean, just literally everything has been hitting on all cylinders offensively for LSU this year. So clearly they're a great team. But you look at Clemson, all they do is go out and win games. They have won 29 games in a row. And I know the first thing people are going to say when they hear that comment is, look at their schedule. And listen, I get so sick of the whole who, how you played thing. I mean, I know it's turned into a big joke here on this channel, but the reality is, if you win 29 games in a row, it literally does not matter who you have played in any of those 29 games. That is impressive. That is impressive. It is extremely hard to go out week after week after week as a coaching staff and have a group of 18, 19, 20, and 21-year-old kids fully prepared and playing at a level to win week in and week out over a 2-calendar-year period. And that's exactly what Clemson has done. Clemson has not lost a game since the first round of the playoffs way back in 2017. They have a loaded roster, returning a ton of talent from last year's team that was undefeated, 15-0, blew out Notre Dame in the first round of the playoffs, and then blew out Alabama in the national title game last year. They have a ton of those pieces back, starting with quarterback Trevor Lawrence. He can hand the ball to Travis Etienne. He can throw it down one sideline to Justin Ross. He can throw it down the other sideline line to T. Higgins, Amari Rodgers, a third weapon offensively at the wide receiver position for Clemson. They are just absolutely loaded. And while I will agree that the ACC is probably the worst conference top to bottom in America, I don't think that diminishes what Clemson has accomplished over the course of the last 2 calendar years. Whoever you're a fan of, let's do it this way. I will stipulate to you that Clemson has clearly been better than every single team on their schedule. So you get the comments that say, well, they're supposed to beat Wake Forest. They're supposed to beat North Carolina. They're supposed to beat South Carolina, whatever. I understand that, okay? But whatever team you're a fan of, ask yourself, over the course of the last 2 seasons, how many games has your team lost to teams that you were better than? As a Georgia fan, I believe Georgia is clearly better than South Carolina. We found a way to lose, okay? Is Auburn better than Alabama? You can figure that out on your own. I could go down the list here. The point is, great teams lose all the time. Go back to Ohio State with those games they lost to Iowa and Purdue. Teams lose games you don't expect them to lose almost every single year, and it happens to almost every single team every single year. For a team, Clemson, to go through 2 complete seasons without that happening is remarkable. I get that they have not played the toughest schedule in America. I completely understand that. I get bored watching Clemson games like I'm sure a lot of you do. I'm not going to argue with you and try to convince you that Clemson really has played a difficult schedule. No, they haven't. But I am going to argue the point that somehow means that they have less of a chance in this game because they played a weak schedule. That argument just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, especially considering the fact we heard all these same arguments about Clemson heading into the playoffs last year, and all they did was blow out both teams they played, like I mentioned before, Notre Dame and Alabama, en route to a national championship season at 15-0. People are pointing to the North Carolina game this year. Would you rather win that game close or lose it close? I will agree. Clemson played a terrible game. Maybe it's they got it out of their system type of thing, maybe, and they came out with a win. Again, I'll use Georgia as an example since I'm a Georgia fan. The worst game Georgia played this year was clearly the South Carolina game. Instead of finding a way to win at the end, they found a way to lose, right? An interception in overtime, a missed field goal, whatever the case may be. You can knock Clemson all you want for that North Carolina game. The point is, when the final buzzer sounded in that game, Clemson was the winner. Period. So I really don't understand the lack of respect that, in my opinion, Clemson seems to be getting from a lot of college football fans. And the reason that makes me mad, and I'm just going to admit, it does make me mad. The reason it makes me mad is because Dabo Swinney and his ridiculous crybaby routine that he gives in all these press conferences, crying about ESPN, crying about the polls and the rankings, and the AP voters hate us, and the coaches voters hate us, and the playoff committee voters hate us, and they're looking for any reason they can to get us out, and it's just not right. They look for a reason to put other teams in, they look for a reason to put us out, and blah, blah, blah. That drives me up the wall. Clemson is probably the most dominant program in all of college football right now, surpassing Alabama, in my opinion. With Alabama missing the playoffs this year and with getting blown out by Clemson last year, I think right now, if you look at the overall landscape of college football, you have to consider Clemson to be the cream of the crop in terms of programs right now. And when I'm talking about programs, I'm not talking about one season and the next season. I'm not talking about individual seasons. Clearly, Clemson is one of the best teams this year and a better team this year than Alabama. When you're talking about programs, you're talking about recent history. When you're trying to rank programs right now, you're talking recent history. I think Clemson's at the very top, right? So hearing Dabo Swinney come out in these press conferences with all these crybaby routines, his press conferences should be sponsored by Kleenex at this point. It's just getting ridiculous, and I get tired of hearing it. He sounds like a coach who, it sounds like you remember when Boise State, right, was on that run 10 or 12 years ago, whatever it was, and they were trying to get into a BCS game. These are the types of things the Boise State coach would come out and say. These are the type of things you expect to hear from somebody like Central Florida or something, right? Not Clemson. Not the cream of the crop. Not the best program in all of college football. This idea that somehow everyone is out to get Clemson, that idea died and should have ended about 2 or 3 seasons ago, at least. At least. You've won 2 national titles in the last 3 or 4 years. You've got a chance to win a 3rd coming up on Monday night. This idea that everyone is supposed to look at Clemson as the underdog just because Dabo Swinney comes out and cries is ridiculous. That's why it's so upsetting to me to hear all these idiot fans not giving Clemson any chance at all in this game, because that's reinforcing Dabo's crybaby routine that he gives to the media every single time somebody sticks a camera or a microphone in front of his face. And I'm tired of hearing it on both sides. With that being said, it's very possible LSU comes out and wins this game. If that happens, that doesn't mean that all these people who have spent the last 2 weeks saying Clemson has no chance, that doesn't mean they're right. They're not right. There's nothing right about saying Clemson doesn't have a chance in this game. I don't care if Clemson comes out and loses 100-0. It still would not make all these people right who have spent the last 2 weeks dogging Clemson and saying they don't have a chance. Clemson clearly has a chance. When's the last time your team won 29 games in a row? I'm a Georgia fan. I can't remember it, okay? I don't know that it's ever happened. Maybe it happened. No, it didn't even happen in 80 to 82. We won the SEC 3 times, won a national title, played for another, but we didn't win 29 games in a row. So the point is, Clemson deserves to be in this game. The schedule that they played to get here at this point doesn't matter. They blew out every single team they played with the exception of North Carolina. Okay, that was their worst game of the season. Again, think about whatever team you're a fan of. Point to your worst game of the season, and chances are you lost it. You lost. Clemson found a way to win, okay? That's all that matters at this point. They're in the title game. So is LSU. Here's the question about LSU, I think. And this particular question doesn't have anything to do with this game coming up Monday night. Who is LSU next year? Has LSU turned a corner as a program, or is this a one-off situation for LSU? I do think that's a legitimate question. I do think that's a legitimate question for a couple of reasons. Joe Burrow has had one of the best seasons by a college quarterback that we have ever seen. The numbers he's put up is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, just go through and look at them. I'm not going to rattle them off here, but everything from total yards to completion percentage to touchdowns to efficiency to touchdowns to interception ratio to rushing yards to key third down rushing yards that have picked up third downs for LSU. Literally any stat you want to look at for Joe Burrow is absolutely insane this year. This is his last year. He's off to the NFL. He'll most likely be a top 5 or top 10 draft pick, depending on how the draft order shakes out, any trades that might be made or whatever. He'll go in the top 10, I'm sure. Has LSU found a plug-and-play system similar to what Oklahoma has developed under Lincoln Riley, where it seemingly doesn't matter what quarterback they put in, they're going to put up crazy numbers, they're going to compete to win their conference and make a playoff spot every single year, even though they're shuffling a different quarterback in every single year? Has LSU figured out that blueprint? Or is this sort of a lightning in the bottle situation? Everything has come together at the right time. Amazing wide receivers, great offensive line, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and most importantly, Joe Burrow and Joe Brady. Can they replace Joe Burrow next year and pick up offensively right where they left off this year? I think that's a legitimate question, only because this is year 1 of us seeing this for LSU. I'm not here to tell you, yes, they can replicate this next year, or no, they can't. I think that's a legitimate question and debate that people are going to have all offseason, and I don't think that question will be answered until we see some games played next year for LSU. Number 2, Joe Brady. What's he going to do? Everybody and their brother wants Joe Brady or a version of Joe Brady. He's been offered an offensive coordinator position with Matt Rule at Carolina. Matt Rule, of course, the Baylor coach, took them from like 1-11 to a Sugar Bowl in basically 2 seasons. He's gone now at Baylor, hired as head coach for Carolina Panthers. Word on the street, he wants Joe Brady as his offensive coordinator at the Carolina Panthers. Now, I don't expect to hear anything about this one way or the other, yes, no, or maybe, until after the national title game, but that is something to keep an eye on. Is 1 year of Joe Brady at LSU enough to instill that system permanently in that program? And do they have another quarterback that can come in and replicate the sorts of things that Joe Burrow has done? To me, that's a bigger question to me about LSU than can they win the national title game on Monday. I think it's probably a more important question in terms of what type of team are they going to field going forward? If we can figure out the answer to that question, then I think we'll know the answer to that, the yes or no. They will be great, or they'll maybe go back to, being good, but maybe not great, winning the 10 games a year, sometimes 11, falling short in the West, whatever. I really don't think we know. In terms of the game Monday night, I think there's a few keys on each side of the ball. I think both teams have got to protect their QB on offense. And on defense, they got to get the QB on the ground. And those two things, of course, butt heads, because one team can't do one if the other team is doing the other, right? Joe Burrow, I've seen this firsthand 2 seasons in a row against LSU. Even though LSU didn't have the dynamic offense in 2018 that they put on the field this year in 2019, they still had Joe Burrow. And although he didn't have near the numbers in 2018 that he did in 2019, he still had that scrambling ability, that sort of innate, almost like a third eye. He can see defenders coming from the backside, that kind of thing. He's a magician at escaping pressure, extending the play, scrambling, moving out of the pocket. And when he does that, he's not necessarily just looking to run or throw. He can do either. And I've seen him do both to Georgia multiple times in both games that we played against LSU over the course of the last 2 seasons. We got a ton of pressure on Joe Burrow this year, particularly. It seemed like almost every time he dropped back, we were getting some pressure on Joe Burrow. The problem, well, we had a lot of problems in that game, but one of the problems as it relates to this national title game, we weren't able to get him on the ground. We would miss him. He would make us miss. He would spin out of a potential tackle. Everyone remembers the play where he pretty much sat in the pocket for 7 or 8 seconds. That was a case where we got no pressure. So you got to find that middle ground if you're Clemson. I don't think you can just rush 3, sit back and play coverage and hope to cover all those amazing wide receivers for 7, 8, 9 seconds. You got to find a way to get pressure on. Ideally, if you can do that with 3 or 4 people, clearly that's what you want to do. The more people you can have in coverage, the better, but you got to get some pressure on Joe Burrow. And when you get the pressure on him, you've got to get him down. You've got to sack him, tackle him. You cannot be you can't win. If you're Clemson's defense, you can't win on 1st down and 2nd down and have LSU at a 3rd and 8 or longer, something like that. Play good coverage in the back end on 3rd down. Get pressure on Joe Burrow, but let him escape and run and pick up the 10, 11, 12 yards, whatever it is, to get the 1st down and extend the drive. Over the course of a game, that will kill a defense. That's what Joe Burrow has done to Georgia over the last couple of years. I've seen him do it to teams week in and week out this year. And the same applies to LSU when they're on the defensive side of the ball. Trevor Lawrence is not considered to be anywhere near as mobile or as athletic as true dual threat quarterbacks, or even as Joe Burrow. But if you watched the semifinal game, then you know that he clearly has the ability to do that when he needs to. A 67-yard touchdown run against Ohio State. And go back and watch that play. He was running away from future NFL defensive backs. Okay? He is fast. Maybe he's not as athletic as Joe Burrow in the pocket, that kind of thing. But once he gets out and starts running, he's plenty fast. He may not look fast. He's really, really tall, but you got to remember every step he takes is 4 or 5 yards. He's chewing up a lot of ground in a little bit of time. So I think both defenses here are going to have to look to contain these QBs and get them on the ground. It's not enough just to get pressure on these QBs. This whole Havoc rate thing that coaches are enamored with over the last couple of seasons, I understand. Advanced analytics are important, and coaches are paying, tens of thousands of dollars to people to do nothing but sit around and come up with these advanced analytical statistics. And I'm not here to tell you they don't matter, but Havoc rate, I think, has taken on a life of its own. You get credit in the Havoc rate department for flushing a quarterback out of the pocket, even if he runs for 40 yards and picks up a 1st down or a touchdown. I mean, at some point, sacking the quarterback has to matter, okay? If you sack him, there's a 0% chance that anything positive can happen offensively, okay? You flush a guy out of the pocket, you hit him and miss, you affect him and make him move in the pocket, there's a chance that could cause a mistake to be made, a fumble, he slips and falls, an interception. Those things are possible. It's also possible he scrambles and runs for 67 yards and a touchdown like Trevor Lawrence did against Ohio State. It's also possible he scrambles and hits a 60-yard touchdown pass like Joe Burrow did numerous times against the University of Georgia. You got to get the quarterback on the ground. You got to sack him, period. Number 2, the running game. Both of these teams have Heisman caliber quarterbacks, right? And they have running backs who I think are both really, really good, but don't get quite the attention, at least from the average fan, as the quarterbacks do. Travis Etienne is clearly an NFL running back. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I don't think he's quite as good as Travis Etienne, but he still gets the job done. And when you've got to respect the passing ability and the passing offense of LSU, that makes life a whole lot easier for a running back like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Travis Etienne is a true elite college-level running back and future NFL first-round draft pick, period. He can run, he can catch out of the backfield, he can pick up blocks on blitzes. He truly does it all. Which team is able to sort of make the other team one-dimensional? Is either team able to do it? Because there's a possibility that this becomes just a shootout. That we see sort of an Alabama versus Clemson back when Clemson had Deshaun Watson and they won the game 42-40 or 42-38 on a last-second touchdown pass by Deshaun or whatever the case. That we could be looking at another one of those type of games here. But defensively, can you shut down the other team's running game? Can you force them to throw? And then you say, well, why do you want to force them to throw? They're great at throwing the ball. Well, if if you can take away a team's ability to run the ball and they have to throw it, that increases your chances against that passing offense if you know it's coming. If a team is picking up 5-6 yards on first down every time they run the ball, whether it's Etienne or Clyde Edwards-Helaire for Clemson or LSU, they're picking up those 5 or 6 yards and it's a 2nd and 5 or less all night long, that's a huge advantage for the offense because you can literally run any play in the playbook on 2nd and 5 or less, right? You can run it again, maybe pick up the first down, maybe you get close, you could throw it, you can go deep. I mean, there's literally anything, nothing is off the table there when you're winning on first down offensively. The opposite is true. Defensively, you want to win on first down, force your opponent into 2nd and long, where odds are they're fixing to throw the ball here, which creates an advantage for the defense. Anytime or are pretty sure what the offense is going to do with the ball, that creates an advantage there for the defense. Now, what about sort of intangibles, experience? You got to give the edge to Clemson here. I talked about this heading into the Clemson-Ohio State game. I had a really hard time picking a winner on the Clemson-Ohio State game. I thought they were both really, really good teams. I thought they were similar in a lot of ways, loaded with NFL talent on both sides of the ball. Had a real tough time picking that one. Ended up going with Clemson -2, and it ended up being right. And the reason, or one of the reasons I came down that way, Clemson -2, I said, well, I do think it'll be a close game. If this is a close game, and I'm talking about Clemson-Ohio State now, this was my thought process. If this is a close game in the 4th quarter, who do I think that favors? Who do I think that benefits? Well, every single player on Clemson's roster, with the exception of true freshmen, have multiple years' worth of playoff experience. 0 players on Ohio State's team had that. The same is true in this national championship game, Clemson versus LSU. If this game is close in the 4th quarter, I truly believe that favors Clemson. They've got a ton of experience. Their quarterback won a national title last year, right? The juniors and seniors on this team have played in multiple national title games. They've been in multiple playoffs. Nobody on LSU's team has ever played for a national title. Clearly, that didn't seem to matter in the semifinal game against Oklahoma, where LSU was basically up 38-14 at halftime, wasn't it? Or almost halftime. The game was really over midway through the 1st quarter, so that didn't seem to matter against Oklahoma. Clemson ain't Oklahoma. I can tell you that right now. I think Clemson will be probably the best defense LSU has faced. Georgia had a really, really good defense this year. I'm not going to get into a debate about who has a better defense between the top 4 or 5 defenses, which are Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, you name a few others. That's not the point. And LSU did light Georgia up, but Georgia has no offense at all. And when your offense is that bad, it's going to hurt your defense no matter how good your defense is. Clemson does have an offense. So Clemson's defense, in theory, will get plenty of rest in this game as long as Clemson's offense is chewing clock, getting first downs, and scoring points. Wasn't the case in the Georgia game with all the 3 and outs and punting and turnovers. Every time we turned around, Georgia's defense was back on the field, and they gave out in the second half. I thought overall Georgia's defense played pretty good for the first 2.5 or 3 quarters of that game. Go back and watch the video if you want to hear more about that. I don't want to get off topic on that. But the point is, I think this game benefits Clemson if it's close in the 4th quarter. If we have a back and forth sort of game, and if you, again, the Clemson-Ohio State game, what happened? Clemson was winning. Ohio State was winning. Clemson goes down. and scores with a couple of minutes to go. And I'm thinking, there it is, end of game, big game experience. It's paying off here for Clemson. But then Ohio State gets the ball. They march right down the field too with a minute to go. And I'm thinking, well, I guess that's out the window. But what happened? When the pressure was at the highest, Ohio State made a critical mistake. Justin Fields throws a turnover in the end zone. Game over, right? I'm not suggesting that Joe Burrow is going to throw a game-ending interception or anything like that. I'm just saying the possibility exists when you look at these national title games and two teams that are as good as Clemson and LSU are. You have to start looking at almost anything you can to try to find an advantage one way or the other. And clearly, I think you have to give experience advantage here to Clemson. These dogs are going nuts in there. I don't know if y'all can hear that or not. I have to go in there and beat them. I'm just kidding. Don't call Peter on Uncle Lou. So anyway, I think this will be a great game. I really do. I really don't think either defense is going to dominate. I don't. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I thought the Clemson-Ohio State game would be in the 20s. It ended up being in the 20s. I think this one ends up being closer to the 40s. I think this is going to be a lot like Clemson-Alabama. Back when Clemson had Deshaun Watson, a back-and-forth game. I think both quarterbacks are going to throw for a ton of yards. I mean a ton. Remember the LSU-Texas game when there was almost 1,000 yards passing? I'm not saying we'll get there, but I do think each quarterback breaks the 300 mark throwing in this game. I think both teams score a lot of points. Maybe one defense ends up winning the game with a key takeaway in the fourth quarter. Maybe it comes down to a special teams play. I think it's going to be a great back-and-forth game. 5.5 points, though, for LSU, that just seems like too much to me. I don't think this will be a touchdown game. I think it will be closer than a touchdown game. Now, it could be 6 points. You see a lot of games end in 6 points. I'm going to take Clemson in the 5.5 points for the purposes of betting. Okay? Now, so that's not necessarily saying I think Clemson will win. I'm taking Clemson in the 5.5. Clemson could lose by 5. I still win the bet. Who do I think actually wins this game, though? I think Clemson wins. If this is not a slight at LSU, I will not be surprised at all if LSU wins this game. Their offense is unbelievable, and I do believe unstoppable this year. I don't think Clemson can shut down LSU's offense. That's really the only thing that will shock me is if one of these offenses gets shut down in this game. That will surprise me and shock me. Whoever wins this game, I'm not going to be surprised. These are two great teams. As a fan of college football, I'm not a Clemson fan. I'm not an LSU fan. I'm just a college football fan. I'm hoping for a good game, and I think that's what we're going to get. I think this is going to be a close game, so I'm going to take Clemson in the 5.5. I also think Clemson ends up winning the game close. Again, if you're an LSU fan, please don't take this the wrong way. I'm not knocking LSU. LSU is an amazing team. And like I said, offensively, what they've done this year has been nothing short of remarkable. Watching LSU play offense this year has been amazing. I love good college football, and I love good college football players. I loved watching Julio Jones at Alabama. I love watching Jerry Jeudy now at Alabama. I love watching CeeDee Lamb, Jonathan Taylor. I like McCaffrey when he was at Stanford, right? Saquon Barkley when he was at Penn State. I love watching elite college football players. Chase Young this year at Ohio State. Ed Oliver a year or two ago at Houston. I love watching great college football players. And in this game, there is a bunch of great college football players on both teams. Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow, Etienne and Edwards-Helaire, every single LSU wide receiver, Higgins, Ross, Rodgers. The defenses are loaded with NFL talent. Isaiah Simmons at Clemson might be the best defensive player in America, not named Chase Young. It's just loaded here. It's going to be a great game. I can't wait. I'm going to be live streaming it over on the Patreon page. So if you're a member over on the Uncle Lou Patreon page, make sure you check that link on Monday night. Check the page on Monday night about 7:30 or so. I'll post the link. You guys can join me. We'll watch the game together, talk about it, react to it, that kind of thing. I'll still be posting halftime and post-game videos to YouTube, giving you my thoughts and reactions, but the stream itself will be on the Patreon page. If you want to join the Patreon page and you haven't already, just click the link in the description of this video that says join the Patreon page and support the channel to take you over there. Get yourself signed up. You get all kinds of perks and benefits over there for supporting the channel directly through the Patreon page. Again, congratulations to LSU and Clemson on an amazing, amazing season. Uncle Lou is jealous. I'm a Georgia fan. We played in this game 2 years ago. So particularly to you LSU fans, enjoy the moment. When you're in this game, when you're leading up to this game, it's hard to remember how hard it was to get here. And it's easy to take it for granted and think that, well, even if it doesn't go well, we'll be back next year or the year after. Take it from me, that's never a guarantee. We were there in 2017. We've been unable to find our way back since. I'm not suggesting that will happen to LSU. Clemson's been in this game multiple times, so their fans are familiar with this process now and how it works. But to the LSU fans, enjoy this game. Uncle Lou is jealous of you. Without question, jealous of your team. I wish it was my Bulldogs in the game again this year, but it didn't happen for us. It did happen for you. Enjoy it. Embrace the moment. Take it all in. And good luck to both teams. And again, congratulations to both teams and both fan bases. Have a good morning.
Appalling, I tell you. It's appalling. Now, excuse me while I take my clothes off and make the thumbnail for my next video. The title's going to be, "Hey, look at my pussy."
You are not the father.
Because literally all it breaks down to is you came over here and tried to run your mouth. You got smacked upside your head, and now you're a fucking diddly-do spinning around that don't know what the fuck to do. You got no fucking idea. You're just grasping at straws. You're A-bombing it. I'll try this. It didn't work. I'll try this. That didn't. I called him this. That didn't. I'll say this. That didn't. I'll stalk his family on bed. That didn't work. Oh, now I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to go get a bunch of other people. Now I'm going to call up BVD. Now I'm going to get this. I'm going to get this guy. I'm going to get that guy. Oh.